getting the hot water ready and choosing your tea and feeling the feet on the floor and maybe looking out your window and seeing the great, vast beauty. It's all that. There isn't like this up and this down and this kind of in between. Though I must say that essential shift happened, I don't know, maybe 21 years ago, I don't remember, that there's still this totally, absolutely, astonishingly, brilliantly, all new. All new. It's not so, contrastive. But you go, how could it just keep revealing itself in this vividness, this brilliance, this clarity? How could it just keep showing up like this? It's what you are. It's what you've been, experiencing yourself as. And so it isn't quite so, over the top. And I think that's one of the great traps of sophisticated spiritual people, is they just kind of want to stop and rest somewhere because it's exquisite. It's what you've always wanted. Mostly you can't find problems. So you just want to hang out there. And there's a tendency, I don't care. You could be the most brilliantly awake person on the planet, and there are traps. And mostly it's arrogance. And then I've arrived somewhere. It's mostly what that is. I'm up here, and you're down there. I don't know what awakening is at this point. It doesn't compute. And to also think that, someone is above and someone is below, it means you've missed it. The true humility is a recognition that we are all that and we were all interconnected. Now, but the recognition is we are all the same and interconnected, and it's God moving in our lives and in ourselves until it completely fills and spills forth. And when it fills and spills forth, there's nothing left but service. It isn't like you're a nice spiritual human being and you're a good person and you're going to serve. It doesn't know anything else to do. You can have a sense of purpose and step forward in that purpose. But what I'm speaking of is that it's so imbued by itself. This individuation is so empty and so full of its nature, of its divine nature. And there's nothing in the divine nature that knows anything else but to pour forth and to serve. It isn't like some, choice. I have a friend here in the community, and she's a wild thing, she's Irish, and just, anything comes out of her mouth, and she laughs all the time, and, she's very, very, honest about, she dealt with different addictions in her life, and then at a certain point became a monk, and I think 28 years. I can't remember how long she did it. And she was so fierce in her meditation that this very deep relationship she had with a priest, he was kind of her mentor. They didn't even ask her to do any work because she just meditated all the time. from a heroin addict to meditating 24 hours practically. So this is my friend. I adore her. She's just amazing. One of the most clearly awake and ordinary human beings at the same time I know. And she serves continuously. But she serves by, writing poetry and talking to people in AA and loving her husband and rattling around in a big old barn of a house. And she's very, frail in her health. So I guess what I'm trying to get across, it isn't like set up in a certain way that it serves itself. It serves through her perfectly. Just her living presence is a service. So a lot of our really idealistic ways that we're going to serve are often a mind stream that got all carried away with itself. You keep affirming and renewing, I commend myself to the great way. You keep that fresh. And it changes. At first, it's almost kind of a desperation. So that's the beginning. I commend myself to the great way. And then as time goes on, it gets more natural and it more permeates your life and your system. And it doesn't always look spiritual. For many years I was, I don't know what it was. I worked with severely handicapped, mentally handicapped children mostly. And then I did all sorts of things. I did it for 13 years. So each grant that would come out of KU, I'd get, on that grant. And then you do something different each time. My first work that I was given, I was an assistant for research assistants for a PhD. But what I started to see were these beings that were in there that were, just like every other being. You kind of put them all in a pile and go, they're mentally, developmentally disabled is what we call them now. And but they weren't. Some of them were awake beings, and I didn't really even know what it was, but I recognized them. There was one guy, and he was really round, and he was nonverbal, and he didn't hardly even, there was nothing much that came out of him, no emotions. And I was watching him one day. We were outside, and he'd lost his mother. He'd always lived with his mother, and she died, and so he ends up in an institution. And the institution was one of the best in the United States, but it was an institution. Make no mistake. And he's covered underneath the leaves, and he started to move, and he moved so extraordinarily slow and so beautifully present. I was just struck by his beauty. And so those that come into these souls, they don't look, svelte and thin and eat perfectly and meditate all day long. And it comes through who it comes through. And I felt a great privilege to just be sitting with him on the ground and watching him emerge from these leaves. When I go to cities, I always try to talk to some of the homeless people. In Boulder, I would say, why are you in Boulder in the middle of the winter? I'd be in Santa Cruz, or something, but anyway. And talk, with who they are and where they are and what brought them here. And I've heard some amazing stories. It's the affirmation and the recognition that this is arising and taking over this life and being birthed and emerging from every cell of your body, and it will not stop until it completely occupies. It's a change of occupancy. And you can complain and, put this, beautiful tradition against this tradition, and of course you're in the right tradition and others are in the wrong tradition. Or you can complain about whatever, the people that's sitting next to you and they're sniffling, or whatever you want to do. Or my life, I was in heaven and now I'm having to look at my stuff. You can find a million different things to do. It's when I get my body perfect, when I do this perfect, when I make money, when I, whatever. You can do whatever you want to do. But it's the hard way. It's moving and it will not stop until it fully occupies you. So the encouragement, whatever is taking place, open up, welcome it, ask what's going on, engage, be curious. And give gratitude for this opportunity. It's so rare. It's so rare. It's so precious. It's what you've always wanted. Nothing else will ever take its place. And you can try a million different things and nothing else will ever take its place. And you're going to be human and you're going to make a ass out of yourself. You're going to be a jerk. You're going to be all sorts of things are going to come up. And something just arises once again. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.